the stuff that's coming up with the Supreme Court, and DOMA is, we had that's about what the government, the federal government, that's specifically the federal government, as far as states' rights, and Massachusetts in particular, California, there's some stuff coming out of there, and there's actually 18 DOMA challenges, and the majority of those challenges that have already been reviewed by lower courts have come back saying DOMA's unconstitutional, that it actually violates individual rights, which take precedence over state rights. And you cannot go in there and violate somebody's if it's not enumerated in the Constitution, the individual has the right for this. And the states are designated certain rights, and the federal government are designated certain rights.
So up until the Defense of Marriage Act was passed, I guess that was in '96. Somewhere in that area.
Right.
We've had 6 states in the District of Columbia, which in the state, 6 states have passed laws, states' rights laws, for providing for equal marriage rights in same-sex couples. That's being challenged at the federal level now, and this is coming out of our Congress.
Absolutely.
We saw last week, Carol, and I'm going to, in fact, at the end of the show, last part of the segment, I think that our friend Max Martin deserves a response. He wanted to make it public. I'm going to make it as public as possible. We're going to do it on the show.
Okay. I'm ready.
But one of the comments that was made in some of that back and forth that was going on in that discussion was... these folks, they feel like there should be more religion involved in government and less government involved in religion, which is an oxymoron. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
But what religion now? Where are we going with this discussion? Whether it's with the rights of any human in this country, right, or religious rights. And where are we going when we say we need more religion? So we need more Hindus, Muslims?
Exactly. Well, you can even get into the Christian segment, and there are gay churches that openly accept gay people. Now, there may be a debate over doctrine there, but they consider themselves to be Christians.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of heterosexual churches where there's a debate over doctrine.
Well, and that's one of the things I think that the founding fathers are trying to avoid was the debates over doctrine. We're not talking about doctrine. We're talking about individual rights.
Look, if all these Christian groups, and I say that not facetiously, if all these Christian organizations, and I'm going to categorize the churches by organizations because they are truly following a interpretation or a doctrine of their belief system, whether it's Southern Baptist, United Methodist, Catholic, Presbyterian, Protestants. You got all of these. Everybody has got an interpretation. Church of Christ, Wiccans are actually a church, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And recognize, you've got, if they could all agree, there wouldn't be but one church. I guess Church of Christ would win out because they've got the name. Did they copyright that?
Who knows? I think the Mormon Church did.
They copyrighted
and there's
Saints?
I think so.
And the Mormons consider themselves to be a Christian religion, but you talk to some other denominations, and that's the last thing in the world that they're going to admit.
But if
but they won't acknowledge Jesus Christ as the Son of God. He was a prophet.
But I'm not going to get into the semantics. I'm just making the point that as far as
that's their literature, not mine. Their literature, not mine. But that makes them like Jews.
Jews. I mean,
Well, in this discussion, you referenced Max Martin a while ago, and in that discussion that he had with someone online, it came up that one position a person might have is that they didn't think that an atheist should be president.
well,
Why not?
Well, one of the things I had somebody. This is cute that somebody had sent to me a message one day. Said, "You being angry with me because of my lifestyle doesn't agree with your religion. Is like being angry at me because I went down and I supersized my fast food meal, and you're on because you're on a diet. I mean, it makes that much sense.
Yeah, no sense.
But back to like religion, the Constitution, and lifestyles.
Nobody wants to touch that.
There is a nation that fits everything we're talking about. There's a nation that has a very strict moral religious code that everybody's of the same religion. Everybody has the same, they have a spiritual leader of the nation. Homosexuality is illegalized. Let's see, society is well ordered. They've got a great nuclear program. They don't have any national health care.
You talking about Iran?
Yes, I am. And I've always wondered, I mean, is this the country that we want to be emulating?
This is what the Tea Party has us going toward. That's what they want. Yeah. They love Iranians. They ought to move there.
They tried. That's what the war was about. But I really do want to know the answer to that question.
The answer to which question?
Why couldn't an atheist be president?
Well, the Constitution says they can.
Yeah.
And it might be a good thing because they'd be less likely to push the button because they don't believe anything's left after.
If they meet the qualifications set out by this Constitution, who can be president of this country is who people vote for.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say anyone can or cannot be president.
How do you know that we don't already have had some atheist presidents? Because a lot of our founding fathers were agnostics. They just basically believed that there was a higher power. They didn't necessarily believe in a certain God or Jesus
I understand that in the past, but it seems to be a pervasive part of the discussion these days, if that's the right word, that these days we sure don't want to go in that direction.
It all comes back to
Christian.
It goes back to Christianity, whether you're talking about the LGBTs or whether you're talking about any civil liberties group. It's all going to be benchmarked against Christian faith. And every time you get into the discussion, I got into the discussion up there in central southeast Texas, and literally, without saying one way or the other, because I don't, in these kinds of discussions, I don't preload the discussion, well, I'm a Christian, I don't do that. I just have the discussion based on the facts, and the very first thing came back, well, I can tell you're not a Christian. They know absolutely nothing about me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was asked recently how I define the Tea Party. That person needed to be asked how they define a Christian.
Maybe when we talk about the Tea Party, we should talk about the Mad Hatter's Tea Party.
Well, one thing that I'm going to bring out, and if somebody is all you need to do is read the New Testament. And I have read the Bible from cover to cover, and I've studied it very, very closely. And the way I look at it today is that know your enemy, because that's where the ammunition's coming from. That attacks me, and it's not because I'm attacking them. I'm the one getting attacked, and I'm going to defend myself absolutely to the hilt. But what would Jesus do?
Tax dollars, by the way.
I'm militant about it. I mean, I'm telling you now. I mean, this is one gay man that is not gonna I'm not ashamed, and I'm not gonna back down. And the bottom line is this: is that what would Jesus do? You know what Jesus had to say about homosexuality? Nothing. Not a word. Never said a word about it. You can go and you can underline all the red letters in your red letter edition. Jesus said nothing about it. And if Jesus wasn't going to say so much about it, he seemed to have brought up the issues that seemed to be really important to him. If that was not such a big issue, then why didn't he bring it up? If you want to get into the letter of the law and get into Leviticus and you want to get into those things, you need to take a look down the Bible, a couple of verses down, and, don't be eating shrimp because that's an abomination as well. So, there's a lot of things that can be said.
Yeah, and then don't forget, if you were to look at it, the literal interpretation, the second religion of Texas, football, is a sin because it involves a pigskin.
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't. I'm not going to defend that. There are some things that I'm willing to go and get militant about, but I'm not going to. I know better than to pick on Texas football.
Oh, I think we can find us a good cowhide.
I have something that I'd like to ask. Hate crimes. Can we talk about hate crimes a little bit? We're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about civil rights. And I, for one, and maybe some other people out there, I get confused about why we need specific legislation to address specific situations. What are hate crimes?
Hate crime legislation actually does take a crime to a higher level. It's like it's more punitive. If you go out and you do something, and it's, say, I go out there and I do something to Mary.
Yeah,
that's against the law. Now, if I go out there and I do something to Mary because she's a white female, and it's proven that it's a hate crime, it seems to elevate the consequences of the crime.
And I appreciate that, and I understand the need for it.
But I understand
wonder,
the question. I wanted to clarify the question because I've got the same questions.
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
Why isn't just doing something to Mary bad enough? Why do we have to give it a hate crime label to make it something or sensationalize it?
Why should it be a hate crime to beat on gays and lesbians? Well, I've been gay all my life. I'm 50-something years old, and I can tell you that I have seen even this movie that came out, and a lot of people refused to see it. What was it? Brokeback Mountain. Mm-hmm. A tragedy. The movie is a tragedy, and it goes right to the issue of hate crimes, because one of the main characters in that movie, if you watch that movie all the way to the end, it was about him getting beaten up and killed and thrown into a ditch at the end of the movie. And that's what that movie's about, is hate crime. And that's what happens. And when we get into this political vitriol, like we did during the 2004 election, and they were bringing up all this legislation, the hate level gets so high.
I understand it, Mike, but I think
then we turn into hate crime.
Right, but the point that Carol's making is you got to really be mad to beat someone up and throw them in a ditch to begin with, and if you beat someone up and throw them in a ditch, and it's not determined to be a hate crime, that's bad enough. At that point, why do we have to distinguish? I think that we're running something up a flagpole here. Crime is crime.
And civil rights violations are civil rights violations.
Yeah, and when we start to differentiate between those things, then at that point, then are we now going to say, well, yeah, Mike got beat up and thrown into a ditch, but was it a hate crime?
Usually, the hate crimes are based on civil rights. That's, you're violating somebody's civil rights.
Human rights, often.
Human rights, yes. It's when you're doing a hate crime, you're targeting a particular group. You're not just going out there and hitting some random guy.
Exactly.
Right.
You're
if I'm
looking
a burglar,
for a particular group.
If I'm a burglar and I'm going to rob a house, and I follow the national stereotype, then I'm going to rob